back to the Experience Podcast. It's myself this week. We're working. Look, and everyone's been asking, when are we going to get a certain someone back on the podcast? And we're working on that for next week's episode. They're a little busy this week, but they're coming back on. Hopefully for next week. Oh, you know what? I should contact them right now. We're gonna do that live on air. I do this all the time. I send texts. Um, so I'm asking if when can we record, and we'll see if they respond. So anyway, so today's episode, and I apologize if you can hear. There's a lot of birds chirping outside my window here. We'll see what goes through on the podcast. But anyway, today we're really. So I just got out of a movie, what's it called? A showing of the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes movie, and I figured I would talk about it a little bit with you guys. So here we go. So, they just responded live on air. They said Tuesday evening. And so now I have to respond. And there we go. Locked it in. We'll have them on next week. So anyway, I just got out of a screening of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And I'll say up front, we're probably going to talk about spoilers kind of in the back half of this episode. So just, keep that in mind if you don't want to know any spoilers. But I'll start up front by just saying, without any spoilers, I really enjoyed it. It's not on the level of the previous trilogy, and I know they're kind of starting a new trilogy now, right? Is from what I understand. That's already been announced. Is they're starting a new trilogy of Apes movies, and I think it's a solid beginning. I hope that they get better as they go on. Like I would definitely say in the previous trilogy, and I'm not. We'll get to the movies from 50 years ago. But actually, I'm gonna pull up the exact date here. So let's see. This is tough. Oh, there we go. It's is that no? Where does it say? Yeah, so the first one was I thought it was. I didn't want to say the wrong thing, but the first one was in 1968, so a long time ago. And so I'm talking about the newer ones, the one sort of the reboot series that came out in 2011 with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and I definitely think that one was probably the weakest of those three. Personally, I enjoyed Dawn of the Planet of the Apes the most. War is pretty good, and then Rise. Although it's been a while since I've seen Rise. I actually just rewatched War for the Planet of the Apes, but maybe Rise, maybe on a rewatch, Rise would take it. But I think the most fascinating aspect of these movies, old and new, is just the dynamics, right? The maybe not evolutionary dynamics, but the what's it called? It's interspecies relationships that you get, in that, like, how are humans interacting with apes and vice versa, depending on who's the dominant species at the time, or like one of the reasons I love Dawn of the Planet of the Apes so much is because that's in flux, right? It's not really clear who's neither species is doing great in that movie, right? That's really just a small scale story about the struggle of both species. And one of the best parts about that movie, and even War for the Planet of the Apes, and I guess Rise to an extent, is the villains, the quote unquote bad guys. They're not really bad guys, right? They have their own motivations. They have their own sort of path that they're trying to go on, and they're trying to accomplish certain things, and they kind of run into what Caesar's doing, and even Caesar, I think, can see, like, you know what, these are complicated people, and that's one of the parts that, like, is really one of the sort of not talked about aspects of these movies, is just the characters are very complex. Even the apes, right? They make you. It's a movie in 2024 where they make you care about the apes, about non-human characters. And I will say, getting back to the new movie, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I think that's one of the weaker parts of it. I think the characters we're not as strong as and look, you're not going to live up to Caesar. I mean, honestly, that's a big part of the movie, right? Is the legacy of Caesar. But the movie kind of succumbs to that as well, where um, I'll just say without, again, we'll get into spoilers later, but the main villain in the new movie, in Kingdom, is sort of has taken Caesar's ideas and sort of perverted them and made them and sort of change them to meet what he wants, what his personal goals are. And in some ways, the movie, on like a meta aspect, right, it kind of does the same thing where it takes like the learnings of the previous movies and kind of changes them, tweaks them a little bit to the extent where like, is this still, harkening back to what we did previously? Like the main character in the main yeah, character works. The main ape in the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is Noah, and and I'm not saying the acting is actually pretty good all around, but I feel like his character, I don't know, it's interesting. Okay, I talked about one of the best aspects of this film series is just the 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 what's it called? Today I'm struggling for words, guys. I'm sorry. So if there's like a long breaks and where I'm just like I can't think of the word, just the interaction between the humans and the apes, one of my favorite parts. In this one, it's very interesting. Noah seems to his relationship with the main human character, who is I'll just say a young woman. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but we'll just say the character. I don't want to say too much about the movie, and so we'll probably get into spoilers in a few minutes. But his interaction with the human woman, I'm just like it went back and forth, and I understand it was supposed to go back and forth, but it went back and forth very rapidly for me, which is kind of weird considering it's it's like a 2.5 hour movie, and yet some of the character moments felt a little rushed. Right? It's a long movie where some things feel rushed, and it definitely it's it's also one where I enjoyed the first half more than the second half. I thought that it slowed down a little toward the end, which is interesting, right? You think of most movies they kind of pick up toward the end, but no, this one I really enjoyed like the middle, the second act. I thought was actually fantastic, and that one felt the most like the previous movies. Was that second act, and the first act to an extent as well. The third act is definitely brings. I'll say to its credit, the third act really advances the overall world building that they're doing and the storyline, the through line, and how, and I guess the new history of the world, right, in within this universe. And I thought that was a great job. It was just some of the pacing and the plot elements. I was like, do we need, I don't know. So that's like my non spoiler thoughts. I'm trying to think of what else I could say about it without getting too much into the plot details. Again, all the acting is great. It looks fantastic. It still looks great. It's still a series or a movie series with great visual effects. There's a lot more apes talking in this one, obviously compared to the previous one, where really you only had Caesar who was talking, and so that definitely requires a lot more work on their part, or on 20th Century's part. I think it's still a 20th Century movie, right? I don't even know. Shows how much I know, right? Um, yeah, it's still 20th Century. I mean, they're distributor. Uh, and yeah, like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to the next two movies that they do. I don't know. I don't think the release dates have been announced, but I will continue to watch these movies. I love them. I think they're very underrated. Um, yeah, like the new ones, because whenever you say like, "Hey, have you seen the Planet of the Apes movies?" Everyone just thinks of the 1968 one, right? They think back to the old ones. They're like, "Oh, I mean, those are really old." I'm like, no, no, no. There's a new trilogy, and now there's new four that are really good, and they take what's built, what they did previously, and build on it. They change it a little bit. I don't think it's the same universe. That would make it, yeah. Just given the way that, I mean, I could be, I guess, if you really, you know, maybe tweaked a couple things here and there, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a brand new universe, and it's a great example of how you do how you reboot a franchise, right? I think this is a great. It had been a long time. Although to be fair, they had the Mark Wahlberg movie in 2004, which we don't really talk about that. But Rise, Dawn, War, and Kingdom are a great sort of way to bring the Planet of the Apes concept to a new audience, right? It's a completely new audience. Like I obviously was not around in 1968 when the first one came out. I've seen it. I've seen, you know what? Of the five original, I think I've seen two or three. I haven't even seen all of them. I probably, you know what? I might make it a point to watch the rest of them. Just to say I have a full I've seen them all. So maybe we'll do that in the future. But anyway, that is the non-spoiler. This is your warning. If you don't want to be spoiled by the movie, and I would definitely recommend it. Like I would, if you haven't seen it, don't listen to it. Close the thing. I will actually leave the podcast going, so it. Especially if you're on YouTube, right? Keep the podcast. Well, on both, on Spotify, YouTube, uh, wherever else the podcast is, Apple Podcasts. Google is weird. Google changing things around. I'm gonna have to. I keep saying I'm gonna look into that, and I never do. So yeah. Uh, any other places you listen to podcasts? Keep the podcast going. Just take your headphones out, right? But let it keep playing, so that way we can it helps the podcast out. I'm hoping to get back into the ad territory, right, where we can have regular ads here. I know everyone loved the ads that we had, the the anchor ad, which doesn't even apply anymore. Um, so yeah, but like I said, so that's your spoiler warning. I'm gonna get into spoilers now, after this ad break, and we're back from not an ad break because there wasn't one. And let's see. So what should I talk about first? So I talked about the characterization, and the thing that kind of was weird. Like I said, it. So let's talk about May, which I didn't really want to talk about in the non-spoiler section, but we'll talk about May. I think I think the actress is really good. I hope that she's in the next movie. It's not clear. Usually they don't keep the human characters, which I kind of think was a good idea in the first three movies. But now I'm like, I kind of want to see these. I'm kind of over that now. Like, let's just see the humans come back, and the apes too. Because this movie ends at a point where Noah's story is done, right? You can move on. He doesn't have to be. I mean, he doesn't have to be like the protagonist in the next movie. He could be. You could make him like a new, a quote unquote new Caesar. But you could also just say, oh yeah, Caesar's teachings were around, at a different clan somewhere else, right? We've kind of seen a very small portion of the world for a story about like a global, a global pandemic. But for a movie about like, or for a movie series about like a franchise about like a spread of a virus that got around the entire world, and the entire world's changed. We really only stayed in like this one small area of like the west coast of the United States. I assume the new movie they showed an airport, but it wasn't clear what airport it was. Um, but we really stayed in that one small pocket of the world, and it'd be interesting to see like in other pockets if Caesar's word is spread. What are they doing? Is it different? They at the very end of the movie they show the humans contacting via satellite, and I thought that was a nice touch, like because a lot of this movie is humans and apes don't really know as much. Well, the apes especially don't really know as much as they think they know, right? Um, you see Noah's tribe at the beginning, or tribe, Noah's clan. Is that what they call it? I think clan. And Noah's clan at the beginning, very simple and probably representative of most of the ape clans around the world, right? It's just like they're obviously very smart now, and they have their special thing that they do. In this case, they're big into eagles, which is also kind of an interesting twist. Like they put eagles in cages, and then they're upset that they were in cages. Anyway, it's a really weird. The messaging in this movie is like very interesting. So yeah, very probably representative of most ape clans, and then you get to Proximus, who's clearly perverted. Again, like I said, perverted Caesar's teachings, and must have learned that somewhere. I don't know if they learned it from William H Macy, who's an interesting character, or not, or wherever they learned about that. Maybe there's some weird descendant that got mixed up. Anyway, so they both these clans sort of learn new things about humans and how advanced humans are. At the beginning, Noah is very antagonistic and aggressive toward humans, right? Then gets to know May and is less antagonistic, then changes again when he learns that the apes are in cages, and then doesn't trust her when she lies to him. It's a lot of back and forth, and that's the part where I was saying it's a little rushed. Like, pretty immediately, he's like, all right, we're friends with humans now. Even though it seemed like his whole life, and you don't know how old he is, how long it's been, but his whole life, presumably, has been very anti-human, and now all of a sudden he meets one human who's kind of nice to him, and he's like, all right, well, we're best friends now. But that's the part that I was like, all right, that's a little weird. And then May, who's just like has all these ulterior motives, you don't know what she's doing. I thought her secrecy was done fairly well. Um, it's all, but so the part that maybe it's a plot hole that I'm kind of poking, or maybe maybe you guys might know. You'll say I'm kind of stupid for not realizing this. But I'm wondering why May was following Noah around at the beginning of the movie. It's clear why she follows him around once his village gets destroyed and he has to go to Proximus, right? Because clearly her mission from Human Central, whatever, the satellite base, was, hey, get the last I don't know, chip, disk, encoding piece for the satellite, and it's at this bunker, over there. And so, she has to make her way across however far that is to get to that thing. But the I guess it's not adding up why she was following Noah at the beginning before she knew, she even admits she doesn't trust him at the beginning of the movie. She doesn't know whether he's going to sort of you know maybe attack her or whatever. But it's unclear, or it's very clear that she was clearly playing a long game, right? Trying to get her way over to that base, but it's unclear how she went about that and whether, right? Because I think the movie's trying to tell you that she had this mission the whole time from a very clearly intelligent human satellite base. So how did she end up? So then you flash back to the beginning of the movie. Like, what? Why is she like sneaking into their village or like stealing his blanket from the horse? Is she trying to lead him toward Proximus? Maybe, but then like doesn't really explain. Like that would explain the blanket over toward the tunnel, right, where he's trying to lead them over there. But it doesn't explain how or why she went into the tent at night. It also doesn't make a lot of sense because if she wants to lead them over there, like, what does she need, an ally? Is that the point? Like, is she trying to form an ally? I don't understand her motivation at the beginning. Is all I'm getting at. I understand it by the end, and I think it's really cool the way they do that. Like, oh, there's a bunch of humans. They have a little, underground. They have all these bunkers, and they actually survived, and the apes don't even realize that. I think that aspect is really cool. Um, but like I said, the character motivations in the movie feel rushed and incomplete and honestly confusing to me. But there could be an easy explanation. I'm pretty stupid when it comes to watching movies, so I probably just missed something or didn't understand it. Uh, so uh, I'll say I think I like kind of the callback with the little vault, not the little vault, the big vault. The Vault storyline, which is a callback to the original movies, I believe, and that was kind of nice. Although a little derivative, right? What are we doing? The same thing again? But I hope we get some new. But a whole series kind of has done a lot of that, where it's like callback and similar, but a different spin on it. And I hope that they really provide something new in the next couple movies. They kind of go in a completely different direction. But again, like I said, I'm very interested to keep watching. So those are my thoughts on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Leave a comment. We love to read all the comments. We got a surge in YouTube comments because of a certain couple individuals. They know who they are. They're not listening, so I think that's it. I think that's it for what I got to talk about. Oh, one other thing. I mean, they don't introduce Proximus until like halfway into the movie, but they build him up like he's this mysterious person, or that he's somehow connected to something in the past, and it really isn't. He's just some like authoritarian uh, ape, and it's like okay, I don't know. I don't know that they needed to build him up so much, but yeah, that's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.